21, consider the general fund invoices from February 1st through February 28th, 2021.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Moving on to Board of Supervisors discussion of new business. I apologize, Dawn and I had a miscommunication about an agenda item that Washington County Chamber had reached out to us on for, for a race that they want to hold, or not they want to hold, that they're supporting in Southpointe. I will forward this to you for your review, but just as a general outline, there is an organization called Tunnel to Towers Foundation. It's a 20-year-old foundation. They hold 5K events nationally, and they want to hold an event Saturday, September 11th, 2021. It's their first event in Pittsburgh. It's related to the anniversary of September 11th. They're inviting first responders to attend, participate, and be honored. It's professional time and company contracted for the race. They have a pre-event ceremony, which would include an honor guard, national anthem, and a race kickoff. Post-event award ceremony with wrap-up at 12 p.m. noon. Vendor area, DJ, portable restrooms. They already budgeted for the road closure and payment of police and EMS. They have insurance. The event is alcohol-free, and it involves local business and sponsors, inviting local politicians, sending out press release to news stations for coverage. The reason Washington County Chamber is involved is because, as you can imagine, with COVID, Southpointe is hurting. The businesses, the restaurants, the hotels, everything. So an event like this, where we don't normally, as a board, sanction races in Southpointe, it ends up utilizing a lot of resources and costing the township a significant amount of money. Washington County Chamber is asking us to consider putting a policy in place that would allow races to be held in Southpointe. And they actually sent Dawn and I a business plan that I will send to the other board members. But it lists things like economic benefits, and it says, unlike hotels in the racetrack road corridor, Southpointe's overnight stays have traditionally been driven by business travelers throughout the work week. A consistent increase in weekend business resulting from 5K race events would be meaningful. Additionally, considering COVID-19 pandemic, any incremental business we welcomed in the townships to help the township hotels recover. They even set up, just suggested guidelines. We could set a limit of one race per year. These are all things the board will need to consider. And we could also predetermine the following, which are minimum and maximum number of race participants, adoption of risk management plan, requirements for EMS coverage, prepayment of the police, including a pre-application process, and an application process that would need to be approved. So just so you know, this is something that is going to go to the board members. So twofold. One, consider the Tunnel to Towers Foundation race specifically on September 11th, and then also to consider allowing future races in Southpointe. So there's no vote on it tonight, but in an effort to be transparent. And then, while I have you guys for 2 seconds, I am actively working with Jack and Dan and Washington County Chamber on grants for Clean Up Park. I say that every month, but I just don't want you to think we've forgotten about it. We are actively working on stuff. As soon as something is formal, I'll let you know that we're still trying to pursue it.
I would ask for approval from the board as well to work on grants for Cecil.
When I have a specific grant that needs approved, I bring it to every
I'm
time.
asking to assist Cecil Township on grants as well. I mean, you got the approval last month to work on it, right?
Do you want to do it?
It's just
Was there something that was done in January?
It's just a general, no, there's no grant for plan.
LSA, was LSA awarded in January?
It was awarded, but it was applied for in October.
Applied what?
Applied for in October. And board approved to be applied for. Any sort of grant requires a vote for it. When something's formal, it will be brought to
So that's what I'm just asking, that, just as you had asked to go for grants, I'm asking as well.
Yeah, he was.
So I'm asking the board if I could work on applying for some grants for Cecil.
Like overall,
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. I mean,
We're okay with that?
all for it.
All right, thanks.
Go for it. Again, once you have a specific grant in mind, you'll need to bring it to the board. Anybody else have any business? Hold on. Yeah, thank you, I'm sorry. We need to take a vote, and this will be open for public comment. For those of you that did not see, we did not,
Right, so the Commonwealth Court, this has been in the news, issued a decision in the Southpointe Golf Course case.
Can't hear. Can't hear.
Oh, sorry.
you don't need to yell.
Well, you don't hear me the first time.
Okay, can everyone hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. This was in the news. The Commonwealth Court issued a decision in the Southpointe Golf Course case. There were basically 3 issues on appeal. One was procedural about the process in which we enacted the ordinance. One was a spot zoning issue, and one was that we overstepped the authority in the zoning ordinance because it allowed too much discretion to neighboring property owners. And they found on the last one that the ordinance is invalid. So at this point, there is, we're going to be seeking re-argument, at least that's my advice to the board, which we'll be doing this week. That's a kind of a precursor before an appeal, because there are some things that we're looking for some clarity from the Commonwealth Court on before there's a formal petition to appeal if the board wants to take that step. So at this point, I'm asking the board for a motion on a petition for re-argument, which if you approve, we'll file it this
It's
week.
been moved and seconded. I'm going to open it up for public comment. Does anybody have any questions or comments on it before we take a formal vote? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. So you've been formally approved. Anything else? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, there was an item I brought to the board's attention regarding the amusement tax, and kind of piggybacks off what you were saying earlier about Southpointe and actually food service industries, hurting as a result of COVID. In speaking with Gretchen, there's a process by which the board would have to consider that, since that tax is approved by ordinance. There wasn't ample time for us to advertise, so Gretchen can maybe briefly explain the process. And if the board still wants to perform some sort of temporary suspension, they can do so. So, Gretchen, if you
Right, it's generally better to temporarily suspend collecting a tax as opposed to just canceling it. And the process, though, to temporarily suspend the tax is still an ordinance change in which you would basically reduce that particular fee from a fixed cost to a $0 amount for a specific time period. So if it's, and I understand it wasn't, notices weren't sent out and that tax was not collected this year yet. So you could pass an ordinance basically reducing it for this year and next year, reducing it to $0 from the fixed cost, if you're interested.
As a point of interest, that tax, that revenue only generates $3,500 approximately every year for the township. So it's
Yeah, I don't want that. I don't want
big
that.
ticket item, and I know that the service industry has been struggling.
These times,
It doesn't require a hearing though, right, Don?
so we decided to take a public.
Yeah, it would be an ordinance change.
It would be effective.
So you'd have a hearing, I mean, it's a 2-minute hearing, basically, it'd be advertised, you'd open it up for a hearing for
That's
comment.
not one of those ones that falls under this, not the hearing required.
I think it's still a-
Amendments Those required. You think that one is?
I will check, but I think it's a 7-day advertisement and, hearing at the next
For
meeting. But if we don't need it, then I can just give you the ordinance amendment and you can pass that at the next meeting. So it would either be an advertisement hearing or the ordinance amendment and you can just
Why
pass
don't
it.
you just give us the ordinance amendment? and
Yes.
We'll just pass it.
Correct, I can do that. The only question is, do you have to do the advertisement and hearing, and I'll just check on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you'll let us know, and then we'll
Absolutely.
schedule it if we want to.
But is it the board's intention to do a suspension?
Yeah.
So can we just do that?
No.
No, she just
You
said,
have to have a hearing, you probably
she
won't.
said she is still with it.
Yeah, it would be done, it would be an amendment to the ordinance, so it's a formal change in the ordinance. The only question is whether we need to have the hearing or not. But I will send you the text of the ordinance change that demonstrates a suspension for a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
sorry, one other
Go
item.
ahead.
I talked with Supervisor Cecil, and I have also received calls from residents regarding excessive Jake brake usage on Burnside Road between the intersections of Profio, I'm sorry, not Profio. Where's the Overbrook? Yeah, through the Overbrook section, all the way down through to 980. It used to be the PennDOT required you to work with them to get something passed, even if it was a local road. That's no longer the case. What has to happen now is the engineer has to perform a study. So in order, instead of me authorizing Dan to perform that study, I probably should get board's approval to say it's okay for him to perform a study to see if Jake brakes can be restricted in that area.
I'm fine with that.
I'm fine, I'll make a motion.
All right, okay, thank you, that's all right.
Quickly, while we're doing that, Dan, do you have anything else you want to add from an engineer's perspective?
Just very quickly, we did take bids on paving last week, 2 contracts. We had 6 bids on the first contract. The low bidder was $441,000, less than our estimate of $454,000. The second contract fee came in, there were 5 bidders. 316 was the low bid. That was over our estimate of 284. There's drainage in both of those projects. We hope to bring those projects back to you next month, along with bridge bid for Creedmoor, and we can make a decision on how we'll award the road project.
Okay, Gretchen, any summary you want to provide?
Sure, thank you. This was a fairly busy month for the township. As I just discussed, we had that opinion come down from the Commonwealth Court, and we had to review that and advise the board on options. We also have another Commonwealth Court brief that's due next week in a related case, but it's not impacted by this particular ordinance, and that's the Southpointe medical brief, so that's due next week. I had an argument in the Crown Castle case. I had an argument in the Bernard Schultz wellhead dispute. I had a briefing in the Omatic case, and I have an argument this Friday. In that case, that's a land use appeal. I had a status conference related to the Connor Schultz wellhead, and we now have a briefing schedule, which I circulated to the board for a bifurcated briefing. She's going to address some issues about the hearing first, and make a decision, and then we'll address the actual appeal. In the eminent domain matter, we had briefing, preliminary objection arguments tomorrow, as well as we had a meeting with the developer to discuss some potential ways to proceed. It wasn't very fruitful, so we'll be proceeding with the argument tomorrow. Other than that, I've been assisting the zoning officer, working with the township manager on various policies, advising on various matters, including the Jake brake matter and the amusement tax matter, and looking into this issue with Burns Avenue.
Any questions for Gretchen? Any other board of supervisors discussion of new business?
This isn't new, but for what, a year and a half, we've been